Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into something truly fascinating. We're looking at Surah 71 Nuh, but we're going to view it through a very specific and honestly kind of mind-blowing lens. You see, Surah 71 Nuh functions not merely as a historical tale of a man and a flood, but actually as a meticulously logged forensic case study in systemic communication and societal collapse. It is a brilliant demonstration of the immutable laws governing systemic accountability. It shows us exactly what happens when undeniable structural evidence meets entrenched societal resistance.
Okay, let's dive right into this. We're going to walk through 4 clear structural movements found within Surah 71 Nuh. 1. The warning mandate. 2. Multimodal communication. 3. Active concealment. And finally 4. The final invocation.
All right, let's start right off with Phase 1, the warning mandate.
Now, what's really interesting about this slide is how it frames Nuh's actual commissioning. It uses the root NDHR, which translates to warner. But listen, we really have to throw out this common idea of a casual, soft-spoken preacher just handing out optional moral advice. According to Surah 71 Nuh, a warner is actually a formal issuer of a consequence notice. Think of it way more like a legally binding official warning about a completely non-negotiable term. It's a structural mandate, and it's delivered with absolute authority.
And that warning, it's tied directly to a deadline. Now, Surah 71 Nuh presents this deadline, often called an ajal or a named term, not as some distant, magical, or mythological event. Not at all. Instead, it's presented as a rigid structural boundary condition, one that's built straight into the operational system of reality itself. Surah 71 Nuh is incredibly clear on this point. The warning period exists before a defined reckoning arrives, and once that fixed term actually gets here, well, it absolutely cannot be deferred. The clock is literally ticking from the very first verse.
Moving right along to Phase 2, multimodal communication.
So Surah 71 Nuh doesn't just tell us a warning was given, it actually provides a continuous first-person data log. If you look at how this maps out the exhaustive deployment of data transmission, it's pretty amazing. We see nocturnal and diurnal efforts, meaning night and day. We see confidential data transmission seamlessly paired with public manifest declarations. What this shows us is an adaptive, completely unyielding operational execution. And why does this matter so much? Because it proves without a doubt that the society's ultimate rejection was absolutely not due to a failure in communication methods. The delivery of the data hit maximum saturation across every possible societal state. And this brilliantly illustrates what the actual content of that communication was. You see, Surah 71 Nuh pivots entirely away from simple moral appeals and moves straight to hard, structural evidence. The messenger is using observable cosmic and biological infrastructure as verified empirical data. He points to the mathematically precise, flawlessly layered skies. He points to the highly functional placement of the sun and the moon. He even highlights human biological development occurring in deliberate, structured stages, and the Earth deployed as a vast expanse for navigation. This is empirical evidence demanding recognition of a primary structural order. The proof was literally woven into the very fabric of their everyday physical reality.
Which brings us to Phase 3, active concealment.
So how exactly does a society respond to undeniable empirical evidence that's being delivered exhaustively day and night? Well, this quote from Surah 71 Nuh is incredibly profound. They put their fingers in their ears and drew their garments over themselves. Just think about the intense physicality of that reaction for a second. They aren't just shrugging their shoulders in passing confusion. The opposition here required a deliberate, physical, sensory shutout. They are literally engineering their own non-reception of the truth. And why? Because the structural evidence surrounding them is simply too loud to ignore passively.
And that perfectly cements the definition of the concept of kafir, which is based on the root KFR. In the specific context of Surah 71 Nuh, this is not just passive ignorance. It's not a simple lack of belief. It is the active concealment of evident reality. It requires real physical or structural effort. The community wasn't lacking data, you know? They were actively fighting to insulate themselves from it.
When you really stop and think about that, it leads to a total mind-blown moment. Rejection required significantly more effort than acceptance ever would have. To block out reality, exactly as it's documented in Surah 71 Nuh, is an exhausting process. It requires constant, active resistance. You have to actively keep your fingers in your ears. You have to keep pulling those garments over your eyes. It's a highly effortful, self-propagating behavioral trajectory of willful blindness.
Now, to maintain this intense level of active concealment, the entrenched societal leadership had to manufacture a counter-framework to misdirect the collective. Surah 71 Nuh explicitly names 5 of these false authority constructs: Wad, Su'a, Yaguth, Ya'uk, and Nasr. Notice how these specific figures were prioritized over systemic evolution just to maintain static, traditional power hierarchies. Crucially, these manufactured anchors completely lacked any evidentiary backing. They had absolutely no sultan, no demonstrable authority or proof whatsoever. And that stands in stark, deliberate contrast to the overwhelming atmospheric and biological data points the messenger had just presented to them.
All right, that leads us into our final movement, phase 4, the final invocation.
So the crucial point is, what happens when data transmission hits absolute maximum saturation, but the society remains structurally opposed? Well, we have to understand the dual nature of Nuh's final petition in Surah 71 Nuh. This is not some emotional cry for vengeance. Rather, it is a strict demand for systemic equilibrium. Surah 71 Nuh shows us a highly scoped request. On one hand, you have a legal invocation for the absolute termination of the active concealers, the kafir line. Why? Well, because allowing them to survive inherently compromises and structurally corrupts the development of all future generations. But on the other hand, there's a scoped mercy prayer, which is explicitly bounded only to those who have actually entered the functional, defined systemic structure. It acts as a definitive structural sorting mechanism.
Let's move to and see how this builds into an immutable law of the universe, as presented in Surah 71 Nuh. Once a societal framework, a calm, reaches complete stagnation and actively corrupts its environment with material deception and those manufactured counterframeworks we talked about, Surah 71 Nuh dictates its total structural dissolution. This absolute consequence, this utter erasure, isn't arbitrary at all. It's executed specifically to safeguard the baseline system. It allows for clean, systemic growth and future evolutionary development, what the framework refers to as the Khat, to finally resume. As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with the profound question drawn directly from the systemic realities documented in Surah 71 Nuh. What happens to a societal framework when it prioritizes material deception and static tradition over empirical data and systemic growth? Surah 71 Nuh gives us a chillingly precise, structurally inevitable answer to that. It's an absolutely powerful framework for understanding accountability, and I highly encourage you to keep exploring these incredible systemic dynamics. Thanks for joining me on the Explainer today, and I'll catch you next time.